Namaskar.
Namaskar. I'm with
To all.
Krishna Budyananda Ji. Tell us, Dada, where, why, and when you got initiated.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. You're doing a great project, and you're bringing workers and marquis together, young and old, from all around the world, and bringing out, the richness of Baba's mission and Baba's story, both subjectively and a little bit objectively too. So greatly appreciate it. Keep up the good work, and thank you for the invite.
You're welcome.
Baba started to pull me in before I knew who he was. My first conscious memory in this world, I was a 1-year-old child sitting in my crib, or sleeping in my crib in Stuttgart, Germany. My father was an army officer. I was born into a military family. So after my birth, we were reassigned to Germany. So there I am in 1954, as the earliest memory that I can recall consciously. And that is being pulled out of my body, floating above the earth, and the whole globe was there. I was far enough away, and I was seeing the whole earth live, rotating right under me. And I had an adult consciousness at that moment. I said, that's my planet, that I'm here now. But even before I learned how to speak and before my neurons were processing, that was my experience. And that's my first memory of life. So that subliminally influenced me all my growing up period, that somehow, though I walk on this earth, I have connection with the stars, by this or by that. And what meaning does that take? We can all have interpretations of that. Then I, as a young child, was very interested in all the subjects, especially astronomy, sciences. I even had the early version of, theoretical physics when I was 8 or 9 years old, the kids' version. So I lay awake at night and say, if the universe is not infinite, I would visualize myself going to the edge of the universe. I said, if I look over here and this is the universe, and if I look over there, what's that? If the universe has a shape and a form, then in what is it being contained? And I said, is that God? Is that infinity? Is that me? So these questions were always in my head. When I was 10 years old in Minnesota, summer vacation, the whole street, Minnesota is mostly Protestant, right? Lutheran Protestant. All the parents of us boys on the street, we had a whole gang on the street, decided they wanted to be free from us. They sent them off, without asking us, they sent us off to Bible camp. And it was a Baptist Bible camp from the one house at the end of the street. So we got a camp, no religion, just fun in the sun. Well, every morning was the book of Revelations, and every evening was chapel. So we were at a chapel with 200 of us kids and the counselors, and the preacher was up front. And I saw a few televangelists already. I knew their shtick, the way they get up there and do their thing. So this guy was the front of the cabin, and he said, now I want all you boys to close your eyes. And we closed our eyes. He said, I want all of you who know you're going to heaven to raise your hand right now. So I'm thinking, heaven? Heaven? Is that inside the universe, outside the universe? I'm parsing the question. Within 20 seconds, he's kneeling down beside me, saying, and then he said, son? And then I said, uh-oh, I didn't raise my hand in time. He said, son? And everybody else is looking at me, and he says, do you know you're going to heaven? And I said, you tell me what's heaven, I'll tell you if I want to go. And then he goes, well, heaven is heaven. I said, that's a circular logic. You can't use that. Well, you got to find out for yourself then. You have to look deeply with God and, find your answer on that one. I took it like a arrow to my heart. Like, I have to do it, right? So I said, I'll do it right now. I walked out of the back, his door, not the front door of the cabin. I walked into the forest. I sat in the forest by one of Minnesota's 10,000 lakes in the dead of night. And I said, now what am I supposed to do? I'm alone in the forest, in the stars. And I said, God, should I pray? And I said, but God, they say you're omniscient. So if you're omniscient, you know everything. You know what I'm going to say before I say it. You know what I think before I think it. So I really don't have to say anything to you. So if you're not omniscient, I'm talking to the wrong guy. Then I looked around and said, God, they say you're omnipresent. If you're omnipresent, you're in the tree, you're in the lake, you're in the stars, you're in my body, you're in the ground I'm sitting, you're in the mosquito that's biting me right now. You're everywhere. So, and if you're not omniscient, I'm talking to the wrong guy.
What age are you?
Age 10, 1964. Then I said, God, they say you're omnipotent. You got all the powers. Then what am I to ask for anything? Because whatever is going to be, you are in charge. You are in control of everything. It's your power, not my power. So there's nothing to ask for. There's no favors or anything. If you're not omnipotent, I'm talking to the wrong guy. And I said, well, what am I doing here then? And what can I do next? So I looked down and I folded my hands on my lap and I just said, basically the English equivalent of Nishta mantra. I said, well, the only conclusion is, I am God. And when I did that, suddenly the electricity bolt, the thunderbolt came up from the base of my spine and went whoosh. Kundalini. Well, now I call it Kundalini, but it went shroom, 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 shroom. And I was just bursting in bliss and tears and ecstasy. It all just suddenly connected. And I just said, this is my whole life in front of me. I said, I will stay with my mom and dad for 8 more years, and then I'm going to lead my family, say goodbye, and travel the whole world, and I'm going to do the work of this experience right now. The 3 omnis of God. That's what I had to, I promised to do that. And then what I did, I was still crying in bliss, and I was, I was just losing myself. I did a sastang pranam on the ground. I prostrated on the ground. And I got up and I started walking back to the cabins, and the preacher was worried about me. Everybody else was back sleeping. He said, son, there you are. He said, you want to talk about it? I said, I was still coming down. So, well, we can try. So we sat in the front seat of the bus, and he said, well, did you get to answer your question about heaven? I said, heaven is not a place to go. Heaven is a state of being. It's a state of your mind. It's a state of consciousness. You can be in heaven, you can be in hell, right here. It's the same place on earth. It depends on who you are and your consciousness. And he started crying. He says, nobody ever explained it to me that way before. So I went home thinking I had to renounce things. I won't get into the details of this story. I just remember reading the National Geographics and seeing some of the pictures from the Kumbh Melas. I see all these sadhus running around with these orange langotas, and I used to think when I was a kid, hey, I'm wearing the wrong color underwear. I should be wearing that color. Then, fast forward, puberty happens. You grow up a little bit. Age 16, I had a private guitar teacher on Saturday mornings. I just turned 16. I wanted to be a motorcycle rider and a cool guy, and he just told me once, you got to be careful. And he said, I said, what? Because about your karma. And I said, what's karma? I said, well, blah, 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 karma. And he said, I've been meaning to talk to you about this for a long time since you started playing guitar with me. He was a vegetarian and he was a yogi and all that kind of stuff. He wasn't a marquee. But he gave me a book on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the whole smear, about 500 pages, and a book on being vegetarian. He says, we're not doing guitar next week, we're doing this. And for the next 3 or 4 sessions until our family moved away, we just did philosophy and cosmology. So I started on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras right after my 16th birthday. And then some issues. And then when I was about to, my last class with him, I said, well, what should I do in life? And he looked in my eyes and said, you must dedicate your life to service to humanity.
Do you know why he is thinking that? Why he picked you out?
Well, he said that there was something about my presence, and he felt should he talk to me about this or not talk to me about that? Because most of his students are just high school kids that want to, play rock guitar. I wanted to play jazz and bossa nova and everything on a 12-string, which was also contradictory at the time. You don't use a 12-string, but that's where I was. So he intuited that. And when I told him I wanted to get a motorcycle, don't do anything dangerous right now. You have to do service. You have to work out your karma, and you have to know who you are first. So he rekindled my sankalpa, so to speak, with that last message before I said my final goodbye to him. I wish I could find him now again. He must be like 80-something years old now. And so I got totally into spirituality, into Zen. Zen was a big thing. And Vedanta, Yogananda, the whole smear, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, all these things, left, east and west, pyramids, all the hidden orders of, the east and the west, astrology and all the whole smear, everything. But at the same time, I was a radical in my politics. I was anti-Vietnam War, all these things. So my goal was, I had two aspirations. I thought they were totally contradictory. One was to be a revolutionary and take it to the streets, and bring the change, right? But the other part of me wanted to go to the Himalayas and be in a cave. How can I do both? Political people I held up with, and we did anti-war demonstrations and all these other things. I was on the student mobilization committee and all that in my city, and we'd bring 30, 40,000 people in a parade and demonstrations against the war, in 1970. At the same time, all the organizers were atheists and socialists, and they didn't like mysticism or spirituality. My spiritual group were thinking about their past lives and their future lives, and they weren't paying attention to the world. So I thought, am I alone? What's going on here? Am I the only one that feels this way? You have to have a spirituality and change? Because it doesn't seem that way right now. And then a friend of mine said that I was taking astrology class with. She said, I have a friend, my old boyfriend, he said, we learned meditation together 6 months ago. And I'm going to introduce you to him. So she introduced me to her, a Margi, who's an LFT or budding LFT at the time. And I'll give a shout out to him. His name is Surya Prakash. And some of the elder Margis and workers remember Surya Prakash from Athens, Georgia, because he was had a geography near the University of Georgia. So we met one day, and within 10 minutes we were just hanging out and just talking about this and this and this and spirituality, this and that, sadhana, this and that. He said, well, come on, this, it, and all that. And there was no meditation yet. There was the birthday party of, I don't know, some people remember the Sufi guy, Meher Baba. Anyway, all the spiritual groups from the Southeast came to Emory University for the birthday anniversary of Meher Baba. Ananda Marga had a booth, table there. Everybody was there. The spiritual brotherhood and sisterhood of the whole Southeast of the United States. I met the Margi, and I said, and Hare Krishna was putting on the buffet. Great food. So I said, the food is great. What do you guys think? And the Margi brothers said, yeah, the food looks good, but we're fasting today. I said, fasting? And they said, yeah. So I thought, these guys are serious. Now, my resolution was, I'm going to finish this 1 year of college. And when I get this 1 year of college out of the way, I'm going to Japan and enter a Zen monastery. I was headed to be a Zen monk because of some, past life memories and connections with Japan. So that was my game plan. But then I thought, well, these are none the market people. They're serious. And he said, yeah, we do tantra meditation. Tantric meditation? Yeah. I mean, the real tantra, not this, wishy-washy. Yeah, the real stuff. We do meditation 3-4 times a day, and we fast 2 to 4 times a month. I said, wow, I want more of that. So we're going to have a retreat during spring break. You got to come. So here's where it starts. It was a Friday night in some camp outside of Columbia, South Carolina. Friday night, we get there. They say, okay, now here's a universal mantra, Baba and Kevalam. There were no acharyas at the retreat, only margis, about 50, 60 from all over the Southeast region. That was called Atlanta region back then. And so I started this Baba and Kevalam, and I finally said, I'm meditating now, doing real meditation, not just philosophy and all the theory and all that stuff. And then Baba's picture was up on the mandap. And then 2 margis had been in India. It was right after that India-Pakistani war, when, on the earthquake in Bangladesh. So they had one brother, Samoga City. He was early margi, and Madhuri, who became Ananda Mitra, who was later my LFT trainer. They came. And when I saw them both, I just said, wow, these people got energy. So it was all margis. I was attracted to the Sananda Marga because of the margis themselves. I never met an acharya. But there are slideshows of the work in Bangladesh and all the relief camps. I saw these monks going around organizing relief camps all day, and they had a little attaché, and they did their meditation, and then they fed people, and they did practical stuff. And then this guru was in jail, because of his social political ideas, and, anti-capitalism, anti-dogmatic religion, anti-communism, the whole smear. And I thought, hey, it's it. Here's my revolution, and here's my spirituality. And by this next morning, Saturday morning, on my second meditation of Bhavana and Kevalam, and seeing more pictures of the mission overseas in India, and I seen the pictures of the early Avadhutas, I looked at Baba's picture and I said, Baba, I'm not initiated. If I say anything to these people now, they'll think I'm crazy. So it's between you and me, Baba, I promise. As soon as possible, I'm going to India, and I'm going to become one of those Avadhutas. And I promised to Baba on this second day of Baba Nam Kevalam meditation. There was March of 1972, right after my 18th birthday. I'd already become a vegetarian for 2 years. So I was already weaning myself off of Western materialism by then. I teetotaled on any form of intoxication at age 17. I said, no more. So Bob was setting the stage, and he was just breathing me in. And then my meditation was, tough for a big guy like me, just I had to do asanas and get into it. But I'm going to be one of those Avadhutas as soon as possible, by hook or crook. And I kept it between you, it's our secret, Baba. I just kept it in my mind. My dad was transferred in business, and he said, you're coming with us to Chicago? I said, nope. I'm going to go with those Ananda Marga people. I'm going to move into their house. But did they invite you? I said, no, but I know it's going to happen. On May 12th of 72, 6 weeks after that first Bhavanam Kevalam, I got my initiation. Jitishwarananji was my acharya. And I just jumped into it right away. We came to the first summer retreat. Everything that was Henderson, somewhere, Kansas, in the state fairgrounds. That was an interesting thing. But the whole thing was, our unit was breaking up. Somebody's going to Nicaragua to do relief work and all that stuff. So they said, well, you got to run the Jagrati now. So I'm just a beginning marquee, 18 years old. So I became the unit secretary, the regional office coordinator, I taught all the classes and everything. So 6 months later, I'm in LFT training with Giridhar and Madhuri, who's future Anandamitra. Some future acharyas were there, for the future Margis, like my partner here in Anandakan Sudhir was there. We all met. That's 50 years ago, January of 1973. By October, I'm going to skip over the rest of the details. I became an LFT for a nominal period. By October, Diwali, the day after Diwali, we landed, or before Diwali, we landed in India. I went to Patna. I got vibration of Patna. By the way, who was mentioning they took the Janata Express, which we thought was a fast train from Delhi to Patna? I also took the Janata Express, which stopped at every station. There were 4 of us. But I entered training center in Benares in end of October, right after Diwali, 1973. The training center, we were running away from the CBI all the time because Ananda Marg was banned and being persecuted by the government at the time. This was pre-emergency. I finished and became an acharya on October of 74, 1 year. I couldn't see Baba in jail before departure, so I'm taking Baba with me, the cosmic Baba, with me on the road. By the way, Pranavananji called me in the room and said, you know, we got your posting from Baba. He said, you have to become more serious, he told me. Most people know Dada, Pranavananji, the seniors. So you guys, you're going to have to get more serious. You know, you're too easygoing. And I said, why? He said, because you're going to a tough place. And I said, where? Japan. So I get to go to Japan after all, but I had went through India and, you know, Acharya training, and Baba sends me to Japan. Entered Hong Kong sector at the beginning, and was the early, we had our first sectorial RDS of any meaning or substance, 3 of us, the SS, Baba Titananda was the acting OS, and me, incoming Japan RAS. We held it in Om Prakash and his wife Janaki. He was the former manager of the Hilton Hotel, you know, in Hong Kong, and he had a suite, and we had our first sectorial RDS in the suite of the Hong Kong Hilton with free room service and the whole thing. So that was my introduction to the organization in Hong Kong sector. Taiwan was just starting. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because I spent almost 2 decades in Hong Kong sector, based in Japan, all over the sector. But the speciality of all of that, well, before that, Baba was out of jail, so I took the opportunity. Now I get to see Baba personally, physically. I went to India. It was October of 1978, a month after Baba started doing organizational work again. He took a month off to get his health back. And in September, beginning of September, he started the meetings and meetings with Margis and organizational meetings. So I got there 2nd October. We arrived early in the morning. So, and it was a big Jagrati they had. The Jagrati was big and had a huge veranda in front, a nice hall. And Baba had a nice room attached. And then Baba, of course, had his own quarters there also. So I'm rushing. I have a sanskara of being slow with my turban. And I'm putting my turban on, and I'm hearing Param Pita Baba Ki, Param Pita Baba Ki. I'm still putting on my turban. Finally, I get my turban. I rush out. I miss Baba. I see the back of his head going into the room and the door closing. I thought, oh, not yet. And Ramananji just said to me, PA Dada, said, have you had PC yet? I said, no. He says, sit down there next to the door. You're next in line. My first meeting with Baba, my first time to see his physical face, was getting up from Sastang Pranam of PC. So I'm rising and I look in his eyes. Baba's reclining. And Baba and I were telepathic immediately. We didn't even get the introductions yet. we sat for a moment just quietly with each other, looking in each other's eyes. I said, yes, that the one that I gave the sankalpa to, the one who flew me above the earth, the one who rose my Kundalini at age 10, the guy who pulled me in this way and that way, right after my 18th birthday, and the guy who was with me all the time I was in Japan and working for him, that cosmic Baba and this Baba, one. And we were just telepathic with each other, no words. Finally, we did the formalities. What's your name? And all that. And Baba said, come closer. And he grabbed me and pulled me in and put my Anahata Cakra on his, my Sahasrara Chakra pulled into his chest and rested on his Anahata Cakra. So it's like here on me to this on him. And his body was so soft, and the sandalwood smell and the fragrance, and hardly any words. There were a few words, but, well, okay, I'll tell that part and try to put it in context. My name at that time was the same as a Margi, was my Acharya name, Krishna Das. The reason I'm even telling you the name is because it was part of the conversation. So Baba said, do you know the meaning of that name? I said, Krishna is the macrocosmic nucleus, and Das is a servant of the macrocosmic nucleus. Baba said, yes, a very great name, a very important name. He said, have you lived up to the greatness of that name? And I said, just starting, Baba. It is all your will, it is all your grace. He said, you must live up to the meaning of that name. He said, millions of people are waiting to be served by you. And he said, come to me. And no more talking. And I was crying, and he was holding me. And then he did a mudra on my here and here, did a blessing in Sanskrit. And then on the way, I said, do Tandava for me. So I did Tandava. And no samadhis or anything. It was just like grounding. It was more of a grounding and everything merging together for me. No fanfare. But that noon, Ramananji calls, Baba's calling you. You have to do Kaushiki for him after his lunch. You have to go in Baba's room. I didn't even know what Kaushiki was. It only started 3 weeks earlier. So I'm learning this rudiment. He said, go to the garage and his brother will teach you Kaushiki. And it was like, ding, 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 ta, 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 all this. I didn't know what it was, But they pushed me in Baba's room. I worked out, a little bit of ta-tas and ding-dings, and Baba just said, he needs some more practice. Then in the afternoon, I thought, while I'm here for a few days, enjoying Baba's bliss and darshans, I asked Ramananji, can I go on field walk? And Ramananji says, such a boy, you had PC, Baba called you into this room, special, and now you want to go for field walk? I said, if Baba wants. And he says, whatever, we'll see. So I just surrendered. So I was back doing meditation at the Jagrati the second day. And somebody came, where is he? I was calling you. Go to Baba's house right now. And I said, for what? You're on field walk with Baba. We were in the car together. Baba's old, what was it? The DeSoto or that old black car that he had in Patna. Baba and I sat in the back seat, and one LFT from Australia, I don't know if he's still a Margi, and Ramananji and the driver were in the front seat. So I opened the door and just doing Guru Mantra and thinking maybe I'm getting in God's car. I was thinking, ideating. So I sat down next to Baba in the back, and I gave the requisite namaskars from the Margis and workers of the sector and all that stuff. And Baba said, now I want to remind, this is my private time. I don't want to engage in organizational talk during my private time. So he started talking about earthquakes and geology with me. And that became a theme that followed through several times in further meetings. Geology and earthquakes with me. And there's other repercussions of that too, literally. We talked personally. When we were reaching the destination, it was raining. So Baba said, oh, it's raining. Margis are all by the roadside on the outskirts of town. We won't get out of the car due to the rain. So on the way back, Baba switched his attention to the brother in front. His name is Dhruva. Remember, this is 1978. So a young brother, and Baba said, what's your name, Dhruva? I said, what's your duty? So I'm in VSS. And Baba said, VSS. Very important work, duty of VSS. And Baba said, then he was using mudras, and he was talking. He said, VSS must strengthen itself all around the world for the coming changes. We have to get strong. And we must be ready physically as well as spiritually. He said, we have to bring the struggle down from the level of vocality. And he's pointing to his own Vishuddha, Baba's pointing to his own Vishuddha chakra. So we have to bring a struggle down from the level of vocality. And then he brought his hand down and put his hand on the seat between him and me, touching the seat. He said, down to the level of physicality. Yes, we must be prepared for physical fight. Flash forward a year later, we're in Taiwan. I became SDM worker, in the transfer posting chain. I was the only SDM guy present at the time, so I had to do all the SDM departments and, gather updates and all that. Baba loved the kirtans. One in particular Baba loved was DMC night. There was no Prabhat Sangeet yet. I had adapted one of Tagore's songs to kirtan. And I played that for the DMC, the night of DMC. Baba just loved it in the morning, and he invited me in the room for lunch, after his lunch, to play more kirtan. So I got another chance with Baba and personally to play some. And that was the samadhi kirtan. The Margis around the world and workers going samadhi with that kirtan. You probably know some basic versions of that. I call it samadhi kirtan because Baba blessed it, and people, it's Baba doing it. Anyway.
What was the tune?
On that same day, Baba, Baba Nam Kevalam, Baba, Baba Nam Kevalam, Baba Nam Kevalam. But it was my special chords on it. It's not standard tuning, open tuning, and Baba was enjoying it, and more than 3 or 4 whole timers and a whole gang of Margis have fallen over with that kirtan. So I just call it the samadhi kirtan, for lack of another name. And maybe we'll get a recording of it one day for posterity, my style, not everybody else's version. But on that same day, the interesting thing is we rotated the security in charge. So we all got a chance to be Baba's guard. So my duty for security was the RU talk of the same day. This is very significant because this is where Baba starts talking about India and China. For that, if you go to the Ananda Vachanamitra, I think part 6 or something, part whatever, that's equivalent to the Baba and Taiwan series chapter. And it's in there for his RU talk. I was Baba's security, head of VSS, for that morning and noontime. So I was in the front seat with the driver. Ramananji and Baba were in the back seat. Baba asked, again, Baba was going telepathic with me. So he said, I started by saying, because I knew that Baba didn't want to talk organizational stuff, I remembered. So I turned around and I asked Baba, is Netaji still alive? Subhash Chandra Bose. Remember, this is 1979. Baba was very clever, very tactful. He said, that's a very difficult question, and it's hard to say yes or no to that. And of course, I understood what he meant. He didn't want to give a hard answer because, whatever. I have And then Ramananji jumped in. Why are you asking about Netaji? I said, well, because there was a gentleman in Japan. He was a martial arts grandmaster, and he was blind. A very frail guy. He was a senior guy, and he let both Didi and Dada stay at his house for free because we had no other place to stay south of Yokohama. He spoke English. He had an assistant who was his personal assistant because he was blind, was a woman who was also one of his martial arts students. And Didi was taking martial arts with him, and that's how we got introduced and all that. And Didi Anandagori, who was very fundamental to help start really the mainland Japan going. Namaskar to DDG in Laos right now. Even Dada Ragatmananda Ravi, the sitar player, got initiated. He, in that place. When he was still a hippie, playing flutes and sitar and traveling all over Japan. He was initiated there. One morning, we were military style, so it was a small apartment, and there was a division, proper division. So Sensei and I had the same room. He woke up one morning, we were cleaning everything up, getting ready for morning meditation and all that. He said, Dada, he said, somebody came in my dream last night. He was a short man, about my height. He had like brownish skin and big glasses on, and he had this white clothes. And then he had these funny it wasn't a skirt, but it wasn't pants either, all tied in a knot. He said, is that Baba? And I said, sounds like it. What happened? And he just said to me, you must take very good care of Dada and Didi. So back in the car, flash forward again, Ramana said, why are you asking? And I said, well, because that guy that hosted us and cared for us in Japan was a lieutenant in the Japanese army in Singapore when Netaji got off the boat to start the Indian National Army. And he said, oh, that Netaji was a great guy. That was when he could still see. He was still an active military. He lost his sight in the Battle of Okinawa. And then Ramananda said, is he a Margi? I said, well, not exactly. He's a Christian, but he's very close to us. And he's a very spiritual guy. Then Baba just interrupted Ramananji and me, and he did like this. Baba in the car went like this, namaskar. He said, Suzuki Sensei, he helped Dada and Didi very much. He repeated the words that he told in the dream to the martial arts grandmaster, our dear sensei. Baba said, namaskar to Suzuki Sensei. He helped Dada and Didi very much. Then Baba asked me, what's the progress in Japan? I'm 4 years struggling as a fledgling RS. I had a couple of new workers come, to help and stuff. And we were opening up all around mainland, Hiroshima and some great places and all that. But I said, I thought in my mind, what am I going to tell Baba? And in my mind, I thought, honestly, and thinking, Baba, we're taking the wrong approach with the Japanese. We're taking the wrong approach. We should do a different style, a different approach. That was my message in my mind. But I was very kind of diplomatic. I said, Baba, we're making a lot of efforts, but we got to do so much more. And then Baba said, no. He said, you know what? Baba said, we are taking the wrong approach in Japan. He said, the Oriental people are not the same as the rest of the people in the world. Then he went on to say, as a race, the most spiritually evolved race on the planet is the Oriental people. Chinese, Japanese, like that. And the style of prachar we do in this part of the world is not the same as we do in the other style of the world. We must make the adjustment and take a new approach. That's all he said. Then Baba went, we did you'll see that in the chapter of Baba, where he talked about the history of the relation between China and India, the sages of the spiritual tradition over the thousands of years. The main takeaway at that point was he said the Chinese sages came to India to teach dharana. Dharana, like all the different kung fu points and all the different, what do you call it? Energy centers, And the Indian sages went to China to teach dhyan. He said that was the exchange. The Chinese were more practical in how to use the energy of all the different things, and they were focused on that. And they taught Indians better skills at dharana, using the chakras and all the acupuncture points or whatever. But the Indians went to teach them about transcendental surrender, cosmic, samadhi and dhyan. As we were coming out, we came back to the car. All the VSS guys were there in full uniform, GV volunteers. Most of them are college grads. They spoke English, and Baba said, "Did you understand my talk today?" We're outside the car. They're all standing at attention with their lattes, and I'm holding Baba's door. And they said, "Yes, Baba, yes, we understood. Could you understand my English?" He says, "Yes." He says, because of the history of Buddhism in India and the Mughal period, the whole history of that meeting of China and India was destroyed during the Mughal period. And he said, the records are still in China. He said, they're in the temples of Tibet and other parts of China. So what do you think? We should be able to access the history of all those records of the thousands of years between, India and China. Are you boys ready to go and get those records in China, mainland? And remember, we're in Taiwan now. And they said, you can see their hands are trembling. Well, okay, Baba, would you like to go there? Okay. But at that time, it was still dictatorships and communism and the whole smear. So Baba said, I have a better idea. Instead of you guys going over there to fetch those documents and find them, why don't we go and take over mainland China and make China free again? So we'll have not only a free China, but also the documents. Are you boys ready to go and reestablish, Prout and everything and free, make China free from Taiwan? And their hands were really shaking on the latte. Okay, Baba. Yeah. It was too shocking for them, but Baba said it standing in front of the car. Then Baba, because of the delay of attempts to get visas in New York sector, where he's supposed to go next, San Francisco, it was delayed. So Baba had an extra 10 days. We're in Taichung, which is the center city. Baba had to come by car. It was a wonderful story. But we didn't have a proper place. We had it in the Taiwan provincial education hostel to receive Baba. So I was the doorman, so to speak. There was a portico out front. Baba's car rolled up. I opened the door for Baba. Baba got out. He's standing just to my left. You can see some of the pictures where he's getting out of that car door, bringing the big namaskar, big smile. And then he stood and he gave a blessing for the whole of China. He said, the future of China is great, as long as it does not slide down the slippery slopes of materialism. That's what he said. The future of China is great as long as it does not slide down the slopes of materialism. Then we came in, Margis were there, Bhakti Pradhan, the garlands, a big crowd of people. Baba was tired from traveling, so he said, where's the lift? I go to my room. It's on the room's on the 4th floor. He said, where's the lift? There is no lift, Baba. Okay, then I'll go by the stairs. The Margis said, no. The Margis parted, and there's that famous bamboo chair we made for Baba. You can see some of the pictures. The palanquin with all the silk, and the pratik and the flowers and Baba. Now Baba's standing right next to my right side, and the brother Kripa, a 50-year-old volunteer in full uniform, is standing on my left, next to the chair. And Baba said, I can't sit in that chair. No, no, I will just take the stairs. No, no, the Margie said, please, Baba, please, Baba. He said, no, that's for popes and kings. He says, I'm neither a pope nor am I a king. I'm a VIP, a very insignificant person. I cannot ride in such a chair. And then Kripa just said in his broken English, Baba, sit down. And Baba said, okay. That became history. We got to carry Baba up and down the stairs for field walk and all that. And there's videos of that and pictures of that. And one I keep personally because I was the guy in the front, you know, and on Baba's just front, holding the front side. And that was that young version of me. Baba set the tone of China there. I think we were in the Margis at that time felt Taiwan's Republic of China, and we were provincial Taiwan province, you know, hostile. But Baba said the future will be Taiwan and China will cooperate, and they will eventually. He didn't go into all the details, but it will be free. That time is coming. It will be free. And I'll leave it at that for now because, you know, that's relevant to, you know, world affairs right now. Baba wanted us to do prachar. I'm not going to go into detail here too much. Baba wanted us, he said, there's no longer any division between communist and non-communist country. We have to do the whole world. We must establish Ananda Marga in all the countries. So in 1981, I went to Soviet Union through Siberia and Central Asia during the Soviet times. I didn't make a whole lot of initiations or anything because it was very, very controlled situation. But I'm probably the first guy in modern era to do Kapalik Sadhana in Tashkent by an old mosque by the river, by an old cemetery by the river of a mosque they were rebuilding after the earthquake. In the same year, we went to mainland China, and that was right after the Cultural Revolution still. And I spent 2 weeks there, and people were so enthusiastic. I got 70 people initiated, very vibrated people, the Chinese of mainland. Anyway, going to India, I would say out of my 27 years spent in Asia, I spent 7 years of my life in India in total, many different episodes. After Baba finally said namaskar to Taiwan after 15 days, they had to go back to India and then go back to Europe, and then they came to Jamaica and to Venezuela on the other direction. A couple of days later, some drama happened and we lost our SS. He changed his mind about being a Dada after being with Baba for 15 days, and he made his own decision and he went back to private life just suddenly. I called India. I said, look, we lost our SS. So Pranavaranji said, is so-and-so there? No. Is there somebody else there? No. He said, who's there in headquarters? I said, I'm here. He said, now you're the SS. You're acting SS. And be sure to come in October for RDS and bring all the reports. And we'll send a new SS and you'll hand over charge along the way. But you have to come for RDS in October as SS. So I was SS for 2 months. And I can tell you, even being an acting SS, I started going into the system and all the files and started analyzing from a perspective of that. And I started seeing all the problems, the defects, you know, and all that stuff. And I had no idea what an RDS was in India yet. We had dramas with Baba in Taiwan. Well, when I flew in from Bangkok, Baba also told me to bring a camellia plant. He wanted the Japanese Camellia japonica that was in the garden where he was staying in Taipei. So I like that for my garden in India. So I brought 2 camellia plants with me in my attaché. I was turned away, blacklisted in Calcutta. I couldn't get in. I was sent up to Nepal. I took the camellia plants with me and I went to Nepal. I did some drama with passport changes and all that, and I had to try to find a way to come back into India. The end result of all that, I ended up in India without a visa, by Baba's grace. A certain part of the border between those two countries of Nepal and India. And there was a long drama that had happened. So I was detained at the Indian check post. They looked at my passport, and the drama was I got caught in Nepal after I crossed. Nepali police grabbed me and they wanted me to bribe them 200 rupees or go to jail. I didn't even have the 200 rupees left. I had a return ticket. He took me back into India and dropped me off at the Indian check post. They said, well, we have to contact Delhi about this. Indian government said, book him, put him in jail. So I ended up in Gorakhpur jail for 60 days. The jailers and the superintendent were very nice to me, very respectful. And I was in my uniform. I had a special place in a special area of the jail, separate from all the other prisoners, but I could walk around freely in the day. So it was like being in a cave, like some, in a temple, almost like. I said, call me Dada. And they said, we can't call you Dada. We'll call you Baba. I said, why? Because we already have a Dada here. There was a gang leader in the jail from Bengal. They called him Dada. So he's the Dada, you're the Baba. So we'll call you Babaji. I said, oh, well, okay. I got friends with that gang. I initiated 2 of them. That's a great story. But anyway, I remember the doors would be locked from evening till the morning, sunset to sunrise. They locked the cell doors. And I had an orange lungi, even though I wasn't abuddhya. I had an orange lungi hanging on my door just to keep the cold winter air out. It was December, January, 79, 80, when Indira Gandhi was voted back into power, that terminal year. Every morning at 4 a.m., there's a temple out there that used to put a phonograph record on. It was, all creaky sound, but they play it really loud. 4 a.m., Guru Murta, they call it, the Guru hour of the Gurus. Brahma Murta is called, 4 a.m., before sunrise. It was Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Bol, But it wasn't ISKCON. It was just an old Hindu, Krishna temple. But it would come on at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in jail in the wintertime, freezing. And I thought, okay, I woke me up. I can do a little meditation. But it was kind of annoying, too, because, it's kind of scratchy sounds and all that. Anyway, I got the jail and my conviction and all that stuff. So I had my scheduled release date, 15th of February. Time served. I'll be, sent to out of India, whatever. So in a dream, Baba came to me in a dream, took me on his lap, and there was a giant Baba, and I was sitting on his lap, facing the same direction as Baba. And then suddenly in that dream, he pulled me into his Anahata Cakra. My whole body merged into his Anahata Cakra. It's like sitting on a statue, one of some of these statues you would see. That was the scale. He was that much bigger than me, but it was Baba. So it wasn't the 5'2" Baba. It was mega-sized Baba compared to me, and just pulled me into his Anahata Cakra, and then shoom, samadhi. And it was I came conscious out of sleep into the samadhi, and right when it's just peaking, that record started playing outside. I could hear it, Hare Krishna, Hare, and it was the most beautiful thing there. And I was Hari Pari Mandal Gosti, department of STM. I said, this is Hari Pari Mandal. And then boom, I went in deep. I don't know how to describe it. I was totally zoned, blissed out, lost my body consciousness, lost even my identity, came back, And as I was coming back down from samadhi, sun was rising outside, and the sunshine was shining through the orange lungi. The whole room was golden color. And I said, Hiran Mai Koshan. It was all Hiran, the color of gold. And I still didn't know my name. And I just remembered this is Hiran Mai. And finally I came down and my assistant cook came. I said, you take the food and all that. I don't even want breakfast. I couldn't touch food or anything. And finally about 8 or so at 9, I came back to, regular consciousness. And the jailer called me to he says, pack your bags. And I said, why? I was in bliss, but I want to do more of this, this kind of experience. I thought it was like being in kind of heaven. He said, no, you're released. I said, no, I got 7 more days. Let me have 7 more days here. He said, no, when you're done, you're done. Go get your bags and go. So where am I going to go? I said, your lawyer's at the front gate waiting for you, who was also Acharya Pratapaditya, senior Grihya of the mission, also my lawyer. And then I remembered it was my Lokik birthday. So on my Lokik birthday, 4 o'clock in the morning, on my, what was I that year? 1980, 26th birthday, Baba put me in 4 a.m. samadhi and released me from jail a week early. And that was my experience of Gorakhpur jail. And then I went and changed my name, came back again for the drama, and then another drama on Avadhu and all that story. But I just want to tell that Gorakhpur. It was in the summertime during the rainy season, but it was hot and muggy. And it was in Lake Gardens. And it was the evening report, early evening, and the sun was setting. And, the Baba's neighborhood in Lake Gardens was a well-to-do people. And there was some rich families there, down the street from Baba. And this was their mid-80s sometime. Rich kid, I'm assuming he's a boy. Maybe that's too prejudicial. Had a nice sound system, hi-fi, system with turntable and speakers. And I guess he wanted to let the whole neighborhood know that he had a really cool, hi-fi setup. So he put an album on. During Baba's reporting, the windows were open, the curtains were closed, but the breeze was coming. He turned the speakers up full blast, so the whole neighborhood got to hear what was playing on his record album. At that moment, there was only a couple non-Indian workers and a bunch of Indian workers. And there was a new worker from Germany. And I kind of introduced him to, Baba's drama reporting. And then, so he and I were standing on the left side of the room, and a bunch of central and a couple sectorial workers. It was this Prout report or something going on. And Baba's just scalding and cursing at these Indian workers for this mistake and that mistake. And, everything was on fire, Baba, The two of us on the other side were just witnessing and just enjoying watching Baba in this drama. And Baba's looking at, the Indian Dadas. I won't even say what he was saying. Some pretty hard words at the time. Then the record starts playing. And guess what he played? Led Zeppelin. And guess what he played? Which song? Stairway to Heaven. So Baba's going, and then, the whole 17 minutes of the song or whatever it was, 15, 12 minutes. And then Baba was reaching a peak, and Jimmy Page is just launching his guitar. Da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. And this German guy looking at you, we're just like smiling, like we're in heaven, and this drama is going on with Baba over here with these guys. And we're hearing Stairway to Heaven coming through the window. And then Baba just stopped scolding. And he looked at me and the other brother in the face, and he put on a big grin, and he winked at us like that. And then he went back and started scolding again. So he grooved with us while he was scolding the Dadas. he appreciated the irony of Jimmy Page's Stairway and Robert Plant's Stairway to Heaven while he was doing another drama, creating maybe a temporary hell for the Prout workers in the reporting room. And I can, of course, go on hours and hours, and maybe we can do it in another session. But I want to close with that. Baba was universal. Baba was in tune with us. He had his Bengali little ways, but he was cosmic in so many ways also. And he did his leelas for many things. So, but we have to remember in all of our differences that we are still one great loving family. Namaskar.